So, the Johnson family reunion was happening at Golden Fork's flagship restaurant in downtown Chicago, like it always does. You know the vibe, 300 family members packed into this fancy private dining room, all surrounded by mahogany paneling and these big crystal chandeliers. It's a place that screams success, right? And everyone's in the mood to celebrate the family business. The place is buzzing. People are toasting to Grandpa Joe's vision. And then there's me sitting at table 12, barely touching my salmon. And that's when my dad decides it's time for his annual "What's Wrong with Your Life" speech. Yeah, you know the one. The dessert just came out, Golden Fork's signature chocolate soul, and my dad's had, I don't know, maybe his third glass of wine. And then he goes, "You know what I love about these reunions? Like, he's about to drop some deep wisdom on us. Everyone else at the table's smiling, talking about the restaurant empire. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting there, trying to blend into the background, feeling like I'm about to get hit with a lecture about my career. Again, classic family reunion stuff, right?" The table was buzzing with excitement, and you could feel the pride in the air. My family was all about Golden Fork, the restaurant empire they had built, and they were celebrating like they'd just discovered fire. My cousin Derek, who handled Golden Fork's marketing, raised his glass with a big grin on his face. "To Grandpa Joe and his vision," he said, and everyone cheered. There we were, 300 of us gathered in this fancy private dining room, surrounded by mahogany and crystal chandeliers, toasting to the success of a business that had grown into something huge. You could tell this was what they lived for: their business, their empire, their legacy. I could almost feel the excitement humming in the room. I was sitting there, picking at my salmon, trying to be part of the moment, but feeling completely out of place. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved my family, but there I was, sitting in my plain black dress from Target and flats from Payless, looking at all these people who were so comfortable with their success, and I couldn't help but feel like the odd one out. No one could really understand what it was like for me. As they kept talking about Golden Fork's growth, it was clear that the family business was more than just a job for them. It was a part of who they were. My Aunt Rebecca, who handled human resources for the company, beamed with pride, talking about the expansion into Ohio, about how they were opening 3 new locations in the next quarter. Every word she said felt like another reminder of how much they had achieved and how far away that world felt from my reality. Meanwhile, I was just the librarian, sitting there with my fork in my hand, wishing I could disappear into the background. It wasn't that I didn't respect what they had done, it was just hard to sit through all the praise without feeling a little bit like I didn't belong. Uncle Mike, the patriarch of the family and Golden Fork's CEO, stood up to give one of his usual speeches. "Family," he said. "Golden Fork isn't just a business. It's a legacy built by Johnsons, run by Johnsons, owned by Johnsons." The room erupted in applause, people whistling and cheering. You could see how much it meant to them. And honestly, it made me feel like I was in a different world. Sure, we were all family, but it was like they were in this club that I could never be a part of. They didn't need to say it out loud, but I could tell they thought it. "Not everyone in the family chooses the entrepreneurial path," Uncle Mike said, his eyes shifting over to me. The room went quiet for just a second, and I could feel everyone looking at me. And just like that, the attention shifted to my lack of business ambition. "Some people prefer simpler careers," he added, his voice casual but pointed. There it was, the criticism, thinly veiled as just an observation. I tried not to let it show, but it stung. I was just wearing a simple dress while they were talking about business empires and multi-state expansions. And then, of course, my dad jumped in. "Take my daughter Emily here," he said, like I wasn't even sitting at the table. 28 years old, and she's never shown any interest in business whatsoever. content to stamp books and process returns for the rest of her life. There it was, the sharp, cutting commentary about my career. And you know what? It wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 100th time. But for some reason, tonight, in front of everyone, it hurt more than usual. My cousin Sarah, who works in Goldenfork's finance department, let out a little laugh. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real business. Uncle Tommy-san, she said, it takes a special kind of person to build something meaningful. It was one of those laughs, the kind that sounds like a joke, but isn't. It wasn't a full-on insult, but it wasn't a compliment either. And my dad, he just nodded, like Sarah had said something profound. Exactly, he said. Emily's always been more of a follower than a leader. Some people are just built for service jobs. I could feel the heat rising in my face, but I just kept eating my dessert, pretending I was fine. But honestly, I wasn't. I was used to hearing this, used to being the family member who just didn't get it, the one who wasn't part of their business world. They didn't say it outright, but the message was clear. I was fine for now, but I wasn't part of their idea of success. The conversation shifted again, and Uncle Mike was talking about all the qualities the restaurant business requires: vision, strategic thinking, risk-taking, market knowledge. He went on and on about how you had to understand consumer psychology and operational efficiency to succeed. Derek jumped in, talking about managing complex investor relationships. They were all so passionate, so sure of their business acumen. I was just sitting there, barely able to keep up with the words coming out of their mouths. I didn't speak their language. I didn't know about market dynamics or the latest trends in consumer behavior. I didn't care about managing big investors or running multi-million-dollar expansions. I just cared about getting the right book in the right kids' hands at the library. I kept quiet. Though, what could I say? I wasn't a visionary. I didn't have big business plans. I wasn't opening new locations every quarter or running a multi-state operation. I was just Emily, the librarian. My dad leaned back in his chair, getting comfortable in his role as the family businessman, and said, "That's what I've been trying to explain to Emily for years. Business isn't for everyone. It requires a certain mindset, a certain ambition." Aunt Rebecca nodded, adding, "Some people are just more comfortable in supporting roles. There's nothing wrong with that. Libraries are important too." And that's when it hit me, the difference. They had their empire. They had their power. And me, I was just the librarian. And yeah, maybe it wasn't a huge deal to them, but to me, though, it felt like they had carved out this world where I didn't fit, where my career, my life choices didn't matter. "Emily," my dad said, turning to me directly, "you should really think about your future. Library work is fine for now, but there's no growth potential. You'll never amount to anything in business if you don't take some initiative." The whole table turned to look at me, like they were waiting for me to apologize or something. I just put my fork down, smiled, and said, "You're absolutely right. Dad, I should probably leave the success to my cousins." Everyone nodded, like they were satisfied with that answer. But it didn't feel like an answer to me. It felt like giving in. It felt like, once again, being told that I wasn't enough, that I couldn't be a part of what they had built. And the worst part, they didn't even realize how much it hurt. They didn't get that while they were toasting to their success. I was just trying to find my place in a world that didn't want me. So, here's the thing. As my family continued to sit around celebrating their success, sipping their wine and toasting to Grandpa Joe's vision, I couldn't help but smile to myself. They had no idea. None of them knew that I had been quietly, and I mean quietly, funding everything they were so proud of. For years, they had all been patting themselves on the back, talking about their strategic vision, their sophisticated funding structure, all while I was sitting back and watching, a silent partner, but not just any partner, I was the largest investor in Goldenfork Enterprises. Yep, me, the simple librarian. The one everyone thought didn't have a clue about business. The one who had spent years just stamping books and processing returns at the Chicago Public Library. I was the one funding every new restaurant, every location expansion, every grand vision they had. I owned 78% of Golden Fork, just a casual $200 million stake in the company. Oh, and I didn't just buy it. No, I didn't just hand over some cash and walk away. I'd been in the background for years, making sure things ran smoothly, making strategic decisions through my investment vehicles, and managing the money through Meridian Capital Partners. All the while, my dad and uncles were explaining to everyone at the table how business worked, how they were building this great empire. But behind the scenes, it was my money that was making it all possible. They had no idea, not a single one of them knew. And why would they? They were too busy talking about market dynamics, consumer psychology, and opening new locations in Ohio. I wasn't the one who'd spent the past decade bragging about my entrepreneurial genius. I was just the librarian, the follower. And they didn't question it. They didn't even know they were talking about their own success on the back of my money. To them, I was just the other Johnson, the one who hadn't chosen the entrepreneurial path, the one who hadn't built anything. But here's the thing, every major decision they made about Golden Fork, every expansion, every renovation, every strategic initiative, my representatives on the board had to approve it. Every time they raised money for a new restaurant or took on a new partner, it was with my funds. And guess what? It wasn't like they had any idea of who was really in control. So while they sat there toasting their so-called brilliance, I kept quiet. I just ate my chocolate soul and smiled. Maybe they'd give me some credit if they knew, but honestly, I didn't care. I wasn't looking for their validation. I wasn't doing it for the recognition. I was doing it because, I liked seeing the family win, and I liked seeing them grow. Sure, I didn't have the same grand ambitions as they did. I wasn't building an empire or managing a team of 100 employees. I was in a quiet library, surrounded by books and quiet, peaceful afternoons. But the truth was, I was shaping the future of Golden Fork just as much as they were. My inheritance, the $50 million my grandmother had left me, had been the initial investment. It was a trust that my father had no idea about. And from that, Golden Fork's success began. My fund manager, Patricia Chin, had helped me grow that initial amount to $200 million over 7 years through smart investments and careful financial management. Every decision, every move Golden Fork made, I had a hand in it. The family just didn't know it. They thought the empire was built on their backs, their decisions, their brilliance. But really, it was me in the background, keeping the ship afloat with my quiet financial influence. And yet, every year, it was the same conversation. Dad would sit there, talking about how I wasn't ambitious enough, how I wasn't cut out for business. He'd talk about how I was content to stamp books while they were out there taking risks and building something real. And I'd just smile, nod, and take it. Because I knew something they didn't. I knew I was the one who had been supporting their success. It was ironic, right? They were sitting there, toasting to their vision and ambition, while I had been the one funding their dreams all along. But here's the kicker I didn't mind. It wasn't about being recognized. It wasn't about being thanked. I wasn't in this for the spotlight. I wasn't out to prove anything. But let's be real, if they only knew the truth. If they knew who was really behind all of this, it would have been a whole different conversation. They'd probably look at me a little differently, maybe with more respect, maybe with more understanding. But I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't interested in changing their minds about me. I wasn't interested in proving anything to anyone. The family didn't need to know. They didn't need to understand how much I'd been involved, how I had been part of every key decision, As far as they were concerned, I was still just Emily, the librarian, the one who couldn't handle the pressure of real business. Fine by me. I had other things to focus on. I was content. But then, that night, something shifted. It wasn't just the usual jab at my career choices. It was something different. The look in my dad's eyes, the way he kept talking about how I should think about my future, it hit me. He didn't get it. Not at all. He couldn't understand why I was fine with my life, why I didn't want to be part of their business world. What he didn't know, though, was that I was already in it. I was part of it. I was the one who had been making sure they could keep expanding, making sure they could keep opening new locations, paying their employees, funding their projects. But it was all happening behind the scenes. I didn't need to be front and center in the family business. I didn't need to be the one taking all the risks. I was perfectly happy being the silent partner, the one who kept things running smoothly from behind the curtain. And I wasn't looking for any credit. I didn't need it. But I had to admit, it was a little bit sweet to know that I was the one who had been quietly pulling the strings. While my dad lectured me on business ambition, I was the one who had made sure they had the money to grow. I was the one who had been funding everything while they congratulated themselves on how far they'd come, and I was okay with that. I wasn't looking for their acknowledgement, but part of me couldn't help but smile, knowing that all their success, it was because of me, just a simple librarian. The next few days after the reunion were a blur of frantic phone calls, emails, and text messages. It was like someone had pulled the rug out from under my entire family, and they were scrambling to figure out what had happened. I could hear the tension in every conversation as they tried to understand how goldenfork, their beloved family business, the one they had worked so hard to build, was suddenly facing the very real possibility of collapse. It all started with a phone call from Uncle Mike, the CEO. "Emily, something strange has happened," he said, his voice tight with concern. "Our primary investor has pulled out of goldenfork, and we don't understand why. We need to have an emergency family meeting." I couldn't help but feel a little detached as I listened to him. I had known this was coming for a while now. I had been watching goldenfork's financials, seeing the red flags that no one else seemed to notice. But now, my family was finally realizing the weight of what had happened. They had no idea who Temps River Holdings was, or why they had suddenly decided to liquidate their entire position in the company. And let me tell you, they were absolutely losing their minds trying to figure it out. Derek, my cousin from the marketing department, was the next one to reach out. "Emily, have you heard about the goldenfork situation?" he texted. "Someone called Temps River Holdings just liquidated their entire position in the company. We're trying to figure out who they are. Do you know anything about this?" It was hard not to chuckle a little. I had to bite my lip to keep from responding with something sarcastic. Of course, I knew who Temps River Holdings was. It was But as I read the text, I realized they were beginning to piece together that something wasn't right. They didn't understand what had happened, and they were starting to panic. And I was just sitting there watching them flail around like fish out of water. It was like a strange mix of satisfaction and detachment. But I couldn't help myself. I was watching them scramble, desperately trying to make sense of the situation, and all I could think was, this is the beginning of the end. The next day, Aunt Rebecca, who had been the one to talk about the expansion into Ohio at the reunion, called me in a panic. "Emily, I know you're not involved in the business side of things, but we're having a crisis with our funding," she said, her voice shaky. "Can you call me back?" I let the phone ring. Part of me wanted to respond, but the other part of me, well, I didn't want to. I didn't want to dive back into the family drama. They had no idea what was really going on. They were all still convinced that their problems were just temporary, that they could figure it out. But what they didn't know was that they were standing on the edge of a cliff, and they didn't even realize how far they were from the ground. By the time my dad texted me later that day, I could tell they were all starting to panic. Family meeting tonight at 7 p.m. at Mike's house, he wrote. Goldenfork emergency. Everyone must attend. I didn't reply right away. I was sitting at my desk in the library, organizing the children's reading program for the afternoon. When my phone buzzed with the text, it was almost laughable. I have to work late tonight. I typed back, library inventory. And that was the truth. I had an afternoon full of kids and books, and honestly, I wasn't really interested in sitting through another one of their family emergency meetings. I knew they would be talking in circles, trying to understand why their entire funding structure had fallen apart. I wasn't in the mood to listen to it. The next morning, my mom called me. Emily, she said, your father is beside himself. Apparently, this Thames River Holdings company owned most of Goldenfork, and they just decided to sell everything. No warning and no negotiation. They have 60 days to find new funding, or they're going to close all the restaurants. It was almost surreal to hear her say it out loud. They still didn't know the truth, but it was all starting to unravel. The panic was setting in, and my mom, bless her heart, was trying to make sense of it all. That sounds complicated, I said, trying to sound neutral. I'm sure Uncle Mike will figure something out. He's very good at business. She didn't buy it. But where are they going to find $200 million in 60 days? She asked, her voice full of worry. I could feel the weight of the question, but I didn't have an answer for her. I wasn't about to tell her the truth, not yet. Anyway, as it wasn't the time, I didn't owe them anything. But they were starting to piece things together. It was like a slow-motion train wreck, and they couldn't stop it. The next few days were filled with phone calls, emails, and frantic conversations. Derek called again, this time sounding even more desperate. Emily, I know you're not involved in the restaurant business, he said, but do you know anyone who might be interested in investing in Goldenfork? We're reaching out to everyone we can think of. I almost laughed out loud. I didn't move in investment circles. Derek, I wasn't going to help them, but I didn't say that. I'll keep an ear out, I replied, and left it at that. And then, on Friday afternoon, Uncle Mike called. Emily, I need to ask you something, he started, his voice low. This might sound crazy, but Thames River Holdings, those initials are TR. Your parents' names are Tom and Rebecca. Is there any chance, this is going to sound insane, but is there any chance you know something about this company? I didn't even flinch. I just stayed quiet, letting him stumble through his theory. No, Uncle Mike, I finally said, breaking the silence. I don't know anything about it. But as I hung up, I realized something. They were getting closer. The truth was beginning to emerge, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Thames River Holdings was me, and I wasn't about to save them from the mess they had created. It wasn't until later, after everything had started to fall apart, that my dad began to shift. I could see it in the way he started to approach me differently. It wasn't so much that he apologized right away, no, that would have been too easy. But there was a noticeable change in his tone, in his eyes. It was like the walls he'd built up over the years began to crack. For the first time, he was really looking at me, seeing me, not as the disappointment, not as the one who'd chosen the wrong path, but as someone who had played a part in something bigger than any of us had realized. I could hear it in his voice when he called me. It wasn't the usual lecture. It wasn't him telling me to do better or questioning why I wasn't doing more with my life. It was different. Emily, he said, his voice quieter than usual. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. I wasn't sure where this was going, but I could tell it was serious. Okay, I said, trying to keep it neutral. At the reunion, he continued, when I was talking about your career, When I said, "You'd never amount to anything in business, were you upset about that?" It hit me hard. He wasn't just asking if I was upset in the moment. He was asking if I'd been upset all these years, every time he dismissed me, every time he told me I wasn't cut out for business. And for the first time, I felt like he was genuinely curious, like he really wanted to know how I felt about it, not just how it had affected me in that one moment, but over the course of my whole life. I thought about how I'd never really said anything before, how I'd always just let it slide. And for a second, I almost didn't want to answer him. I didn't want to go there. Didn't want to bring up all the years of him writing me off as too simple, too content with my library job. But then I realized this was different. This was my chance to finally speak up. "Dad," I said slowly, "you've been saying things like that my whole adult life. If I got upset every time you dismissed my potential, I'd never stop being upset. But this time was different. This time was in front of the whole family, in front of everyone." I could feel the weight of my words as they hung between us. It was the truth. And I think for the first time, my dad understood it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I didn't rush him. I didn't fill the silence with anything. I just let him think. And then he said it. "I've been wrong about you, haven't I?" He didn't say it was shame. Not at first. It was more like a quiet realization, like the pieces of the puzzle were finally clicking into place. "I think I owe you the biggest apology of my life," he added, almost as if he couldn't believe the words as they left his mouth. I didn't respond immediately. I just let him sit with it. For once, he wasn't trying to fix me. He wasn't offering advice or giving me another business talk. He was just seeing me for who I really was. And that felt like a moment of healing. It was like the years of him thinking I was too simple to understand business were finally coming to an end. "It's okay, Dad," I said, quietly. "I know you were just trying to help." But he didn't let it go that easily. He needed to say more. "I've been an idiot," he said, and I could hear the regret in his voice. "I should have seen it before. I should have realized that you were capable of more than I ever gave you credit for." And I could feel the shift. It was slow, but it was there. I could feel the weight of all those years of judgment, all those moments where I was made to feel less than, lifting. My dad was finally seeing me in a new light, not just as the daughter who wasn't involved in the family business, but as someone who had quietly supported them all along, as someone who had played a role in the success of Goldenfork, even if they hadn't realized it. And that was something I hadn't expected. After all the years of being told I wasn't enough, I didn't think this would ever happen. But here it was my dad, admitting he was wrong, and for the first time, seeing me for who I really was, the person who had been there all along, even if quietly, the person who had helped support the family business without ever asking for credit. I didn't need to say anything else. The truth was out there now, and my dad finally understood. I wasn't just Emily, the librarian. I was Emily, the investor, the one who had been making sure they could grow, even when they thought I was too simple to understand business. After Goldenfork collapsed, everything changed. My family was left picking up the pieces, but I was already moving forward. I had learned a lot through all of this, more than I ever thought I would. The library wasn't the only place I was now invested in. I had found my own path. A few months later, I made my first independent investment into a small, independent bookstore in my neighborhood. It had been struggling with rising rent and couldn't keep up with the competition from the larger chains. The owner, Mrs. Mchin, was a lovely woman who had been running the place for years but was getting overwhelmed by the financial pressures. When I offered to help, she was shocked. "Are you sure you understand the retail book business?" she asked. I smiled and told her, I'm a quick learner. I used my experience, everything I'd learned, to help her turn things around. With the new management and a fresh perspective, the bookstore thrived. We expanded to include a cafe, started hosting events, and even became a local gathering spot for the community. It was incredible to watch something grow from the ground up. And for the first time, I felt like I was doing something meaningful on my own terms. My dad, in his own quiet way, started noticing. He never directly commented on the bookstore or my investment, but when I saw him in the store one afternoon, standing there and listening to Mrs. Chin talk about how she owed her success to finding the right investor at the right time, I could see the pride in his eyes. Maybe it wasn't just about business anymore. Maybe it was about recognizing talent, treating people with respect, and finding the right opportunities. Slowly, over time, our relationship began to shift. We started having dinners together again, just the two of us. And this time, the conversations were different. He asked me about my thoughts on business, about what I was learning. For the first time, he was treating me like someone who mattered in that world. And you know what? That felt good. I had found my own way. And it felt like I was finally being seen for who I truly was. And that's the thing, right? Sometimes the most important lessons come from the places we least expect. It's not about being loud or flashy. It's about recognizing talent and treating people with respect, no matter where they're coming from. The narrator's journey shows us that success isn't just about who's at the top. It's about how we support each other along the way. If you found something meaningful in this story, feel free to give a like. And hey, consider subscribing for more. You never know what unexpected twist might come next.